I sat down with CEO Andrew Johnson.
It's been a real pivot to using more online tools. Don't have the personal interaction in the workplace that you normally might have, but there's a real camaraderie about rallying around the cause. So that's been enjoyable. That said, still feel it's very much at the starting line, and the bigger piece is yet to come.
You've been with ACS for almost a decade, CEO for 5 years now. In your experience, does this COVID-19 crisis compare to anything that we've seen before?
No, definitely nothing similar. Even if you went back to the GFC, while that had some financial impacts, going health first and being aware of the way that you behave will have an impact on others really has presented a different type of challenge. That said, again, people understood data, certainly in our industry, could see the trends and exponential growth potential, and it was a really rallying cry to adopt new technologies, move towards that digital economy, take some of the risk out of the equation, and I think we all feel very fortunate that we live on an island, but our healthcare system is second to none.
You said yourself that great minds are put to constructive use, and you've got some great minds within your organisation.
We do, and I think everyone has recognised that we are in this together, so there is a really constructive mindset. No real view as to how long this is for. So take the vaccine out of play, and if this is business as usual or the new normal for the next 18 months, how can you still be successful?
Has it surprised you how quickly people are able to adapt?
No, not at all. I think Australians have always been very adaptive. I think the significance of it has provided a real burning platform, and everyone realises that the pivot needs to happen now. There's not 3 or 4 months to wait and see.
What about the innovation that we're seeing as well? Because that's something that I was surprised with, was just how quickly people assessed that we were in this for a long period of time and we need to adapt now.
Again, wasn't surprised, and I think there's a lot of capability inside Australia. I think people pivoting out of goodwill to begin with, firstly seeing where there's a gap, whether it's in healthcare or how to protect frontline health workers. People respond to that carrying cry, and with that analysis comes new business opportunities. But certainly I think in the last 4 weeks, access to data patterns has really lifted people's mindsets and how technology can enable positive change.
Talk to me about the Flatten the Curve hackathon. How important was it?
It was very important for ACS for a number of reasons. Firstly, back in early March, and when you start to look at the exponential growth, we could see that Easter was representing a very tricky period for all governments, where the rallying cry would then be, we've got 4 days at home, please stay at home, socially isolate, and then you've got a whole bunch of people at home going stir crazy. So the hackathon provided some pragmatic opportunity to compete, meet peers from across the country, people that you don't know, and then put your mind to something that's pragmatic and creative to solve what you saw as the problem. So one of the real attractions of the hackathon is that the contestants got to pick which problem to work on.
What was the response?
We had 2,400 people registered to participate, and an additional 300 mentors. It was only 48 hours, so a real rush to meet people online on the portal, identify who had commonality of areas of interest, so where were those problems that they wanted to solve, what were the different skill sets that would bring teams together to be able to solve for those, and then to build a prototype inside 48 hours.
So can you give us some of the examples of what was unearthed within 48 hours?
It was really diverse, so there was a lot of focus on education, how to keep kids productive and help their education in an environment where they're not used to it. Protecting frontline health workers was another one. Mental health and well-being, some of the more pragmatic engineering ones. There was a great prototype from the University of Canberra and some engineers down there who designed protective face masks for the frontline healthcare workers and then created the headpiece that kept it together using 3D printers. And so that has really significant implications for Australia as we try to improve our manufacturing sector. We've seen global supply chains struggle because of COVID-19, and so what are the opportunities for Australia in manufacturing moving forward? So it's a great initiative, great product design, very easy to use. That was one of the real outstanding ones.
Does that fill you with optimism moving forward when you see that in just 48 hours these are some of the concepts that people come up with?
Absolutely, very optimistic. And so some of the problems that people focused on were the here and now and what can be improved in the next 4 weeks. while there are others that we're looking at once we start to lift restrictions and go back into the workplace, how do we make workplaces safer? So there was a great one from ANSTO in its early deep tech incubator around cleaning desk spaces and being able to measure that so you can have some trust moving back into the workforce that contagion risks are minimised.
Should, in your opinion, the government be looking to ideas such as this, thinking outside the box a little perhaps as we move forward into what could be, I suppose, a new way of working and living?
Absolutely, and a variety of different levels of government have looked at some of the projects that have been released. I think government should be commended for looking at new ways of tackling these problems quickly, and I think the tracing app's one of those. We need to move fast. We understand it's not a silver bullet, there are still risks out there, but these are ways that we can start to measure and contain and really continue to flatten that curve.
I suppose, what's your last piece of advice to people out there?
No, just as a final message, just to have that positive mindset. We do need to pivot. What was business as usual yesterday no longer exists, and we do need to find our transition, and you can only do that by embracing problems and put the mind to solving those.